All right, let's bring it into the conversation right now. Political expert Brian Sobel, friend of the program. Thank you so much for joining us. And we know that Trump and Biden, they've already kind of locked up enough delegates to earn those two primaries there as well. What are we looking at tonight, and what are we watching for in this stage of the primary in Indiana in particular?
Well, Andy, thank you for having me on the program. Always great to see you. The fact is that Indiana becomes one more state in the nation to secure the nomination of Donald Trump for Republicans and Joe Biden for Democrats. In case any viewer has any doubt about where this is going to end up, but what is at stake also are House seats, the Senate. As we know, the House is very close in terms of membership, 217 Republicans at this point, 213 Dems, 5 vacancies. On the Senate side, 51 Republicans, 48 Dems, and 3 independents, two and a half of whom vote mostly Democrat. Yeah. So there's a lot at stake, not just in Indiana, but it's what I always say about the top of the ticket race. Those are sometimes really clear, but where the rubber meets the road is in the House and the Senate.
Yeah, and a lot of implications just based on the margin of some of these seats in both the House and the Senate. I do want to get into that in a little bit here on Live Now, but I do also want to put up just this graphic here talking about, like you mentioned, the Republican presidential nominee or the primary. Of course, Nikki Haley has already dropped out. Donald Trump there securing the victory, but Haley did get, I don't know, 15,000 votes, 24% of it. Do we make anything of this in a place like Indiana? Is there anything that we can read into with those numbers, 76% for Trump, 24% for Haley, even though Haley isn't in the race anymore?
Yeah, Andy, it's a great question, and I think there's a statement there. I think there's 24% of the people in Indiana voting tonight so far saying Donald Trump's not my candidate. And even though Nikki Haley has dropped out, I still want to demonstrate that I'm interested in a different candidate than Donald Trump. And Nikki Haley was the last one standing on the Republican side who was willing to take on the former president. And I think she's being, frankly, I'll use the word rewarded tonight for that. And, and it also portends some other things as well. As we're watching the trial that Donald Trump is sitting through right now and his other legal vulnerabilities. What does that say about the coming weeks and months? What would happen if he's convicted? And how does that affect the Republican convention and how they would view moving away from Donald Trump and moving on to somebody else?
That is so very interesting. And I have one more question before we move to those down ticket kind of races that are so very important, so very vital as we talk about this. We also know that Trump hasn't picked a vice president yet for his upcoming election in 2024. We know in 2016 it was Mike Pence, a former governor of Indiana. Do we read into these numbers more or less based on having that kind of Indiana connection with a vice president, or is that kind of a moot point?
I don't think Indiana's the bellwether. Yeah. I think Donald Trump is going to pick somebody who he thinks both will remain subservient to his views on things, act as kind of the lead dog when he's not out there, and at the same time who is accepted by the American people as a suitable second fiddle to Donald Trump. That's going to be a tougher call, Andy, than I think a lot of people think. I mean, you see the names, the Tim Scotts and other people that may be rumored. I think Noam of the Dakotas before she shot her dog, but other people who have appeared and then disappeared, frankly, from the vice presidential talk. I don't know where Donald Trump goes. He has said for quite some time he knows who his likely vice presidential candidate is, but he's got to be very, very careful in making that selection.
Yeah, very, very true. Of course, he picked Mike Pence for a reason back in 2016. Another kind of set of circumstances for Trump. So we'll see which way he goes there. I just wanted to get your kind of take on that. All right, let's move to some of the down ticket races here. And I want to talk about the Senate as well as we're getting some results in. I'm going to pop this up on our screen here, Brian, talking about the U.S. Senate, the Democrat there, Valerie McRae, 65%, Mike McCarroll, Carmichael as well. So that's on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, though, we're talking about Mike Braun there, the senator running now for governor, the Representative Jim Banks kind of moving up, trying to succeed him. Do you foresee Banks running into any issues right now, locking that seat up this fall?
No, I don't. Indiana's a pretty reliable state, and I think we can feel pretty good about the outcome of that race from an analysis standpoint. And you have on the screen the Banks background. I think he is obviously very strong in Indiana. So we'll see what happens in that race. But Indiana is important in this number of senators that we referred to earlier. I did to try to hold the Senate majority as Republican. And right now, Andy, it's just it's really almost down the middle when you think about the philosophy, and it really bespeaks to where we are as a nation. We are pretty much 50-50 on things.
Yeah, that is so very true. And of course, Jim Banks there, the representative kind of Northeast Indiana. I'm going to put up some of his credentials as well. Like you heard there, the 3rd District of Representatives 2017, a member of the state Senate in Indiana, graduated from IU, born in Columbia City. So he's potentially going to succeed Mike Braun. Let's talk about the House and some of these maybe vulnerable districts for Democrats. And one of those that we're talking about is Indiana's District number 1 there. The GOP sees it as vulnerable. Why do they view it that way?
Well, first of all, Indiana has the potential to deliver Republicans to the House of Representatives. And so for that reason, there are a lot of resources being pumped into some of these races. Anytime you have a vulnerable district, and Indiana only has so many, nine members, you pour your resources into the districts where you can get the kinds of results that you need, and so whether it's that Senate race or House of Representative races, a lot of attention to Indiana and other states around the nation, of course.
Yeah, that is very, very true as well. I do want to put up just this graphic here on Live Now from Fox of the potentially this as Republicans looking to flip this seat in the general election. He's running for election in the 1st district that we were just talking about. 2021 representative there, North Township, Ball State grad, Hammond, Indiana. And of course, his father served in the Indiana State Senate for 41 years. And that's going to be an interesting one to see if the GOP can flip it, maybe give them a little bit more cushion in terms of the House, but as well, I do want to.
Before you jump ahead, there is the issue, Andy, as we both know, of incumbency as well. Yep. I think when you're an incumbent, you already have a platform from which to operate, and so it makes it a bit of a challenge to unseat an incumbent. And there's the old joke in Congress that incumbents are elected about at the same rate as the old Soviet Politburo, which means you don't get defeated without a lot of resources and oftentimes missteps. And so these races, when you look at them, incumbency does matter.
Yeah, and name recognition potentially matters as well. Yes. Of course, his family there, a long history in Indiana politics. All right, let's move down the road a little bit, northwest to more central Indiana. A lot of money being pumped into the 5th district in Indiana, a little bit north of Indianapolis. 2 GOP hopefuls locked in a messy battle. What do we make of this, and potentially why does it lead this way, and why is so much money being pumped into this race?
Well, once again, I think if the supposition is that one or both Republicans are strong candidates, and there you have both of them on the screen, then it's worth putting the money behind them and seeing whether a seat can be locked in that adds to the Republican majority in Washington, D.C., and that's the key. I think you have two kinds of schools of thought. One is the Republican, in this case, apparatus, who says, hey, if we have a candidate X, we really have to reinforce success there, versus the idea that we may not achieve a seat. Then you're going to throw all your money into these close seats where you think you can make a difference, and that's another one. The fifth there is one where the Republicans can make a difference.
Yeah, and we're looking at a trio of odd districts, the first, the third, and the fifth there in kind of northern Indiana. Brian Sobel, anything else in terms of the Hoosier State that we're focusing on for these primaries ahead of the November general?
Not in particular. I mean, you've covered it very well, Andy, and it's just I would summarize it by saying, like every state, Indiana and these others that we have covered over time, talked about, they're important because of what they say nationally, but they're incredibly important because of the down ticket. And we often say that people sort of ignore that in favor of the top of the ticket, and that's a mistake. Because you have a situation like in California, one of the districts, where the second place situation after Liccardo, the mayor of San Jose, was decided on 4 votes. 4 votes out of so many votes cast, and so every vote does matter. And that's the message for today as we speak to the viewers. Hey, your vote matters. Go out and make it matter.
Yeah, and like those 4 votes, they could sway a seat, but they also could sway a majority, which we know has significant pull there in Washington, D.C. All right, Brian.
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you again. Appreciate your joining us, your perspective here on Live Now from Fox of the Indiana primary.
My pleasure. Anytime.